The day the galaxy smiled. The Illyrian Concord Hall had been designed for moments like this. It hung in open space above the blue-white gas giant Ilvara, a vast ringed structure of crystal alloys and gravitic braces, large enough to host representatives from 100 species without favoring any single gravity well or atmosphere. Soft light flowed through its vaulted chambers, tuned to frequencies proven, over centuries, to calm even the most volatile minds. Today, the galaxy was smiling. For the first time in recorded history, a new sapient species from beyond the mapped spiral arms had answered the Concord's hail and arrived willingly, openly, without weapons raised. They called themselves Terrans. Their delegation entered the hall not in armored escorts or dominance displays, but in modest diplomatic vessels that glided into assigned berths with almost excessive caution. Their ships were sleek, compact, and strangely dense. Scans showed reinforced hulls far thicker than required for civilian travel, but no weapon signatures beyond the bare minimum for self-defense. The Velothi observers noticed everything. They always did. Ambassador Kethrai tilted her avian head as the human delegation emerged. Bipeds, soft-skinned, forward-facing eyes, balanced, symmetrical, and, by galactic standards, remarkably expressive. They wore simple garments, dark fabrics broken only by small insignias over the chest. They smiled. That alone unsettled a few of the older species. Teeth were rarely displayed without intent. "Welcome," Kethrai said, her translator harmonizing her melodic clicks into smooth galactic common. "On behalf of the Illyrian Concord, we greet the people of Terra." The lead human stepped forward. A female, silver-threaded hair bound neatly at the back of her head. Her posture was relaxed, but not careless. "I am Ambassador Elena Ruiz," she said. "On behalf of Earth and its colonies, thank you for receiving us. We come in peace, curiosity, and respect." Respect. Another word carefully chosen. Formalities followed. Mathematical constants were exchanged first. Prime numbers, universal ratios, shared truths of physics that transcended biology. Music followed. A Velothi wind composition answered by a Terran orchestral piece rich with layered emotion. Images of worlds were displayed. Velothi sky reefs, Corthex hive cities, Sol fortress moons. Humanity showed oceans. Endless, restless blue. Storms and waves and fragile life clinging to spinning rock. There were murmurs in the chamber. Deathworld indicators spiked quietly in several analysts' feeds. Still, harmony held. As hours passed, the Terrans proved agreeable, patient, almost overly cautious. They asked before recording, asked before approaching, asked before sharing technological data, even when no restriction applied. The Corthex trade mind flagged this as inefficient. The Sol Imperium flagged it as suspicious. "Your people are restrained," observed General Vrax of the Sol, his scaled arms folded across ceremonial armor. "Most species rush to prove strength at first contact." Ambassador Ruiz smiled again, smaller this time. "We have found," she said, "that strength speaks loudest when it doesn't need to announce itself." That answer was archived, translated, debated. Sensors continued to monitor the Terran ships docked outside. No change, no escalation, no hidden fleets emerging from hyperspace. Nothing. And yet, why the armor? Asked a junior Velothi analyst quietly, feathers ruffling as she reviewed scans. Exploration craft do not require hull density like that. Her superior did not answer immediately. Throughout the day, small anomalies accumulated. Terran translators carried triple redundancies. Their environmental suits were rated for extremes beyond Concord's safety standards. Their medical data listed bone density and adrenaline responses more consistent with apex predators than diplomats. But none of it broke protocol. None of it threatened harmony. At last, the vote was called. The Concord chamber filled with shifting colors as species cast their decision. One by one, lights aligned. Unanimous acceptance. Humanity was welcomed as a provisional member of the galactic community. Applause, translated into acceptable equivalents, rippled through the hall. Ambassador Ruiz bowed her head, hand pressed briefly to her chest. "Thank you," she said. "This trust honors us." As the formal session drew to a close, Kethrai accompanied the Terran delegation toward the exit corridor, her curiosity finally overriding decorum. "Ambassador," she asked softly, "your people appear prepared, more so than most at this stage." Ruiz paused. For the first time, her smile faded completely. "Our history taught us caution," she replied. "We learned it the hard way." Kethrai considered this. "You fear us." "No," Ruiz said gently. "We fear what happens when anyone assumes peace is permanent." A distant chime echoed through the hall. Routine sensor traffic, nothing alarming. Outside, space remained calm, stars fixed and silent. As the Terrans departed, Kethrai watched their ships disengage with careful precision, slipping away along approved vectors. Harmony held, but as the Concord Hall slowly emptied, a single line from the Terran closing statement replayed in the Velothi ambassador's memory, filed as ceremonial courtesy, yet strangely heavy with meaning. "Thank you for trusting us," Ambassador Ruiz had said. "We hope never to give you a reason not to." The silence between heartbeats. Harmony lasted 16 days. That, the Velothi would later record, was the exact span between welcoming humanity into the Concord and the moment the galaxy remembered why it feared the dark between stars. The first warning was absence. Outpost Vel 9, a listening station on the fringes of Velothi space, failed to transmit its routine status ping. At first, this drew little concern. Stellar interference was common near Ilvara's outer systems. Automated retries were scheduled. Diagnostic queries sent. Nothing answered. Within the hour, 2 nearby trade relays went dark. Their signal ghosts ended mid-transmission, cut not by static, but by sudden, absolute silence. The Concord's alert protocols escalated. A reconnaissance flotilla was dispatched, 3 light cruisers and a scientific corvette, their mission strictly observational. They emerged from slipspace at Vel 9's coordinates to find the outpost still there. Intact. Power signatures were nominal. Docking arms extended, beacons active. No life signs. Boarding teams moved cautiously through pristine corridors. No breach marks. No weapons fire. No bodies. Every workstation abandoned mid-task, as if the occupants had simply stepped away. Only one thing was wrong. The station clocks were still ticking. 17 minutes behind local standard time. By the time the flotilla returned, Concord intelligence was already correlating similar reports across 5 systems. Communication delays. Navigation anomalies. Worlds that answered hail seconds too late, or not at all. Then the refugees arrived. Their ships were damaged, overfilled, and screaming distress calls layered with panic pheromones and fragmented speech. The Sol Imperium translated first. The XYRR are awake. The name chilled the chamber. The XYRR Dominion was an ancient horror, a predatory empire from pre-Concord history. They did not conquer for territory or resources, but for assimilation. Civilizations they encountered were stripped, biologically, culturally, absorbed into something vast and alien. They had vanished millennia ago, presumed extinct or withdrawn beyond the galactic rim. Presumed. Holographic displays filled the Concord Hall. Worlds with their atmospheres flensed, orbital defenses crushed with impossible precision, fleets erased without wreckage. Entire systems rendered eerily untouched, except for the absence of life. The refugees spoke of time distortions, of sensors that lied, of weapons that did not merely destroy, but removed. Panic spread. Emergency war councils convened. Defensive lines were proposed and abandoned within minutes. The Concord's military doctrine, honed for deterrence and border skirmishes, was laughably inadequate against an enemy that ignored formation warfare entirely. And through it all, the Terrans remained measured. Human observers attended every session, offering data analysis, logistical modeling, evacuation frameworks. Their systems process Concord sensor feeds with startling efficiency, identifying patterns others had missed. They target hubs, not worlds, One Terran analyst explained calmly. Disrupt perception. Isolate. Then harvest. General Vrax slammed a clawed hand onto the table. You speak as if you have faced this before. Ruiz met his gaze without flinching. Not them, she said, but their methods are not unfamiliar. When the Velothi petitioned for joint military action, humanity hesitated. We can assist in non-combat roles, Ruiz said carefully. Evacuation corridors, medical relief, early warning networks. Your ships are armed, Vrax snapped. We have seen the armor. Yes, Ruiz replied, and we are not at war. The distinction infuriated some, frightened others. As XYRR forces advanced, the Concord debated capitulation. Entire border systems were offered in exchange for delay. The XYRR response was swift and contemptuous. They transmitted an ultimatum. Surrender 3 populated worlds. Submit biological archives of every Concord species. Dismantle all long-range detection arrays. Compliance would be rewarded with survival. The chamber erupted. It was then that the Terrans made a request. A private session. Restricted attendance. No recorders. They asked for temporary operational authority over a single, uninhabited system along the projected XYRR advance. One system. Limited duration. What would you do? Kethrai asked. Ruiz's answer was precise. We would demonstrate consequence. The vote was held within the hour. Denied. The Concord feared escalation more than extinction. Humanity's proposal was deemed too aggressive, too provocative. The Terrans accepted the ruling without protest, but something subtle shifted in their posture. An invisible line crossed. Hours later, long-range sensor screamed. Not with an incoming fleet. Not with energy signatures. With mass. A gravitational anomaly bloomed inside Concord-controlled space, deep within a supposedly empty system. Space warped. Star positions drifted. Navigation solutions collapsed into nonsense. The anomaly had no approach vector. It had not arrived. It had simply been there, unnoticed, until now. Technicians shouted. Analysts panicked. Emergency alerts echoed through the hall. What is it? Kethrai demanded. No one answered. Then a Terran officer, pale and grim, looked up from his console. Madam Ambassador, he said to Ruiz quietly. They crossed the threshold. Ruiz closed her eyes for a heartbeat. When she opened them, her voice carried across the chamber. Concord representatives, she said, please remain calm. What you're detecting is not XYRR. The lights dimmed as the anomaly intensified. And General Vrax growled. Ruiz met the assembly's gaze. And it has been here since before first contact, she said. You are only seeing it now because it has chosen to be seen. The chamber fell silent. In the space between heartbeats, harmony finally broke. Until a Terran warship uncloaked. The stars moved. Not drifted, moved. Across every Concord display, fixed constellations warped as if space itself were being folded aside. Navigational grids collapsed into spirals of error. Distance lost meaning. The gravitational anomaly no longer resembled a sensor glitch, but a deliberate presence, heavy and exact. Then space tore. No explosion marked the moment. No flare of energy. One instant the void was empty, the next it was not. A vessel occupied the system. It was vast beyond comprehension, longer than the Concord Hall itself, its silhouette a brutal geometry of angles and layered armor plates that swallowed light rather than reflected it. The hull was matte black, not polished, not ornate, but functional in a way that suggested every surface existed to survive something catastrophic. There were no visible engines, no glowing weapon arrays, no identifying banners, just mass. Alarms howled. Defense grids spun up automatically, targeting solutions, screaming for lock that never came. The ship did not register properly on most sensors, its shape partially occluded by fields no Concord science could interpret. Unknown contact, a Sol weapons officer shouted. Power readings are, by the Imperium, they're impossible. The ship spoke, not in a language, but in data, structured, precise, undeniable. Concord systems flooded with an identification packet so vast and authenticated that even hardened military firewalls accepted it without protest. Terran Warship Designation, TWS Aegis Null. Role, Strategic Deterrence Platform. Status, Active Restraint Protocol lifted. A hush fell over the chamber. Warship, Kethrai whispered. General Vrax rose to his full height, scales flaring. You lied, he snarled, turning toward the Terran delegation. You said you came unarmed. Ambassador Ruiz did not raise her voice. We did, she said. We did not say we arrived defenseless. The Aegis Null adjusted its orientation, not toward the Concorde, but outward, toward the advancing XYRR vector. A silent declaration of priority. Data streams continued. Tactical simulations, running faster than any Concorde system could match, unfolded across shared displays. Projections showed the Aegis Null engaging Concorde fleets. For minutes until total neutralization. Not destruction, neutralization. Disabled ships, crippled command structures, orbital dominance absolute. Shock turned to fear. This vessel, Kethrai said slowly, could have conquered us. Ruiz nodded. Yes. Then why didn't you? Because conquest was never the threat, Ruiz replied. Extinction was. The XYRR arrived moments later. Their fleet slipped into real space with brutal efficiency. Organic hulls warped around skeletal frames, weapons glowing with energies that bent sensor returns. They formed no formation. They did not broadcast. They advanced. The Aegis Null did not maneuver. It did not accelerate. It simply waited. A single Terran command echoed through the ship. Deterrence demonstration. Limited scope. One shot. The warship fired. There was no beam. No projectile. Gravity inverted. At the heart of the XYRR command structure, a moon-sized control nexus abruptly ceased obeying the universe's rules. Its mass folded inward, space compressing until the object collapsed into itself in perfect silence. No explosion. No debris. Just absence. XYRR vessels recoiled as if struck by terror itself. Their formation disintegrated, engines flaring as they retreated. Not tactically, but instinctively. They fled. Across the Concorde Hall, silence reigned. The Aegis Null powered down its weapon systems. Space relaxed. Stars slid back into place. General Vrax sank slowly into his seat. You could have annihilated them, he said hoarsely. Ruiz's gaze never left the display. Yes. Then why stop? Because annihilation teaches nothing, she said. Survival does. She turned to face the chamber. Humanity learned long ago that the most dangerous moment in any war, she said, is the one where you prove you can win. The Aegis Null transmitted one final packet, record sealed under Terran classification, but briefly shared now by choice. Histories of Earth's wars. World-spanning conflicts. Near-extinction events. Weapons banned not by treaty, but by horror. We built these ships, Ruiz said quietly, so we would never again have to use them lightly. Kethrai felt a chill ripple through her feathers. And how many are there? Ruiz hesitated. Enough, she said, that no one should ever test that question. The warship began to fade, its edges blurring as cloaking fields reasserted themselves. Not retreat, not departure, concealment. As the last trace vanished, a realization settled over the Concorde. Humanity had not revealed its strength to dominate. It had revealed it to warn. First contact had begun in harmony, and the galaxy now understood what had been holding that harmony together all along. The meaning of harmony. The Concorde Hall had never been so quiet. No alarms rang. No delegates argued. Representatives of 100 species sat in stunned stillness, gazes fixed on empty space where the Terran warship had been only moments before. The stars beyond the viewport were once again steady and familiar, yet none present believed they truly were. Harmony, it seemed, had been standing on something unseen. Ambassador Kethrai broke the silence at last. Her feathers lay flat, subdued, a posture reserved for moments of historical gravity. Record this session as permanent archive, she said. Unrestricted classification. No one objected. General Vrax rose slowly. The Sol warlord, whose species revered strength above all else, looked older now, less certain. "You could have ruled us," he said, addressing Ambassador Ruiz directly. "One ship was enough to break the Concord. Your fleets must be immeasurable." Ruiz did not smile. "Ruling through fear is unstable," she replied. "We know. We tried it once in pieces on our own world." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "What you witnessed," Ruiz continued, "was not a weapon of conquest. It was a reminder. Deterrence exists, so it does not need to be proven again." Kethrai inclined her head. "You hid such power and asked for permission to speak." "Yes," Ruiz said simply, "because harmony chosen freely is the only kind that lasts." The XYR threat did not return. Long-range sensors confirmed a full withdrawal beyond the rim. Listening arrays picked up no pursuit, no retaliation. Only a widening void where the Dominion's advance had once been inevitable. For the first time in millennia, the Concord had survived an existential test, and it had done so without firing a shot of its own. Emergency resolutions followed, passed in hours instead of decades. Military doctrines were rewritten. Early warning networks were redesigned around Terran predictive models. Entire schools of strategy were quietly abandoned as obsolete. The Concord also voted, unanimously this time, on a matter never before proposed. Humanity would be granted full membership, not as a junior species, not as a protector, but as a strategic equal. The terms were drafted carefully, almost reverently. Terran warships would remain cloaked within Concord space unless extinction-level thresholds were met. Human intervention would be voluntary, never automatic. No member species would request Terran force lightly, and none would question refusal. Ruiz accepted the charter with a nod. "These terms are agreeable," she said. "They mirror our own laws." Kethrai studied her. "And if we break them?" Ruiz met her gaze. "Then harmony would already be lost." In the weeks that followed, the galaxy changed in subtle ways. Trade routes realigned, not toward Terran space, but around it, respectful, cautious. Military posturing quieted. Border skirmishes faded as old rivals reconsidered the implications of escalation. Some species slept better knowing the Terrans existed. Others slept worse. Velothi historians began revising the official record of first contact. Early drafts described humanity as unexpectedly powerful. Later versions struck the word unexpectedly. One entry, penned by Kethrai herself, would become the most cited passage in modern galactic studies. Humanity did not bring war to the stars. They brought the memory of it, and the discipline to never repeat it. As for the Aegis Null, it was never seen again. That did not mean it left. Deep within Concord space, sensors occasionally recorded anomalies, tiny gravitational ripples, fractions of a second out of sync with reality. Terran officials neither confirmed nor denied their significance. They did not need to. Children of a dozen species grew up hearing stories of the day the dark blinked and a god of metal looked back, of the humans who smiled, asked permission, and carried the weight of apocalypse as if it were a burden, not a trophy. Harmony endured, not because the galaxy was gentle, but because someone strong enough to break it had chosen every day not to. In the end, the Concord's final addendum to the First Contact archives summarized the truth no one could ignore. First Contact began in harmony. It survived because humanity understood something the rest of the galaxy was still learning. Peace is not the absence of power, it is the mastery of it.